President-elect Joe Biden's selection of Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary sets him up to go big on stimulus. The decision signals Biden wants to act aggressively to revive the world's biggest economy. Joining me now to break down what this means is Wall Street reporter Sonali Basak with Bloomberg News. Sonali, happy almost Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
I can't believe it's finally here. This one's different than all the other Thanksgivings we've had. Look, how is Wall Street reacting to this Yellen news?
It's obviously huge news after months of believing that it could be a Brainard Treasury Secretary. So this did come as news to Wall Street. It came as very, very welcome news. So Yellen got a resounding stamp of approval from the markets here because people believe that she will have what it takes to get a stimulus passed and negotiate with not only different sides of the aisle, but also different factions of the Democratic Party.
She is a labor market economist.
Right.
She studied with an economist who's known to be left-leaning, and she took that into her entire career, more than 40 years in public service. What does that mean when the economy is suffering so much?
So that's a really important and I think actually underplayed aspect of her expertise here. So she is inheriting an economy in which labor force participation, as we know, has more people unemployed for the longer term. And remember, at the Treasury Department, it's not the same as her role at the Fed, where it's constant interest rate control. The next stimulus package will require is Treasury and Fed to work closely together. Now, how those two are intertwined tends to scare some people, but at the same time, you saw, like last week, a spat between the Treasury and the Fed, where the Treasury said, we're not going to continue this funding for these packages that need to keep the economy afloat as the CARES Act expires.
Of course, people know her from her role as Fed chair. What does it mean in terms of relationship to have that experience? Because negotiations can certainly sometimes get ugly between the Fed chair and the Treasury Secretary.
Right. Why is this next stimulus so important? So first of all, people like the idea of a stimulus right away. The markets like it because it could be an improving economy. But how much money do you free up? And how worried do you start to get about the budget deficit? Fiscal conservatives in Congress are going to be pretty upset about massive stimulus. But there is a push to get more money to broader parts of the economy. You know, there are other things, Tim. There's Wall Street regulation around the corner ahead. There's how she would take an approach to sanctions, how she would take an approach to international relations, and all these bodies that you work with as Treasury Secretary, the World Bank, the IMF, G20, G7, all of those things are down the road. And guess what? They're not things that people are thinking about today, but it's things that people are worried about and thinking about in the future.
The last 4 years have been a lot different than when she was part of the Obama administration. Or I wouldn't say she was part of the Obama administration. She was independent, of course, as Fed chair, but she was selected by President Obama, I think it's fair to say. How does she appease the right and the left when it comes to Congress?
Well, for the left side of the party in particular, right? Because the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party, they really want her to be tougher on the banks, tighter on regulation. And her history shows she's been in the middle on this, right? But she may come up and really focus on the non-bank sector. So some of the risks in the hedge fund industry and right outside the big banks. So that might make people happy, as well as kind of that expanded stimulus and focus on employment.
Before we let you go, Dow just hitting 30,000, a new record. What is the signal that investors are sending right now?
The signal that they're sending is that they're less worried about the immediate future because of the stimulus and because of the vaccine hopes.
Wall Street reporter Sonali Basak with Bloomberg News joining us this afternoon. Happy Thanksgiving, Sonali.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.